My name is Charles Odinga, and at the moment, the scenes you're seeing on your screen, current residence of NASA leader Raila Odinga, who is, according to what the Daily Nation tells us as we review the papers, is supposed to be arriving at Uhuru Park at around 10 o'clock this morning, ahead of his swearing in as the People's President, together with Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. We had shots earlier on of Uhuru Park, but at the moment we are at Raila Odinga's residence in Karen. Earlier on, Stephen Leto came to us live from Karen. The shots that you have now, he told us that, as you can see, people are already arriving at the grounds, although there are no signs of a planned function, no seats designated on the podium, no sound system, no police presence, or no presence of the leadership of NASA at all. For a moment, there was some drama when the people there discovered a beehive right behind the podium, what they later on set on fire. And as Stephen Leto said, he'll be looking out for any development on this and keeping us posted. We are told these people, some have arrived from as far away as Homa Bay, and earlier on we had a report from our people on the ground in Mombasa and at the coastal region, where several buses ferrying NASA supporters from the coastal region to Uhuru Park for this function were actually detained at Voi. The buses are now at Voi police station. The latest we have on this is that they are waiting for the officer commanding police division, the OCPD, to come and give them a way forward. Several of the passengers were found not to have their national identification cards. Those who have their cards had pleaded that they be allowed to continue with the journey to Nairobi, but the pleading fell on deaf ears, and as it is now, they're waiting for the OCPD, according to our reporters on the ground, so that he can give a way forward on the same. Remember, we have our reporters across the country. Francis Gashuri is on Gong Road, Willis Raburu is camped in Kisumu, Sam Kituku is at the court. He will be telling us the latest as far as a case that was filed by the Attorney General Githu Muigai challenging the legality of the People's Assembly. Wilkista Nyabwa is, of course, in Karen at Raila Odinga's residence. Stephen Leto at Uhuru Park. Bernard Ndong and Lulu Hassan are camping in the CBD, the Central Business District, and they'll be telling us what's going on there. Remember, Mercy Kandie is also in Karen at the residence of Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. In the studio, of course, I have Mheshimiwa Jared Okello, Member of Parliament for Nyando. We are still expecting, because we've not heard anything contrary from her, Beatrice Elachi, Speaker, Nairobi County Assembly, was supposed to join us as we review the papers today. Mheshimiwa, we have talked quite a lot about the basis upon which the events of today were set up, but we are seeing a situation where there is somehow a gray area between how you people are interpreting the law and what's written in the law. When it favors you, you're good. When it doesn't favor you, you don't touch that bit.
Well, basically, those who have problems with this constitution are the proponents of a no campaign. You know very well that half of Jubilee's composition is a team that never accepted, never campaigned for, and never adopted the new constitution. And you have seen time and again very concerted efforts to derail the constitution, to thwart the constitution, and render it meaningless. They have done a series of things around the constitution in a bid to just, throw it out. You remember also a few days after the vitiation of the August 8th election, Uhuru Kenyatta said that they have numbers in parliament to even change the constitution. So it is them who have very big problems with the constitution. For us, we interpret the constitution as it ought to be, and that is why each time we have a legal tussle with our opponents at a court of law, we always win, because our interpretation is always correct. But, it is them who then would want to look at areas, the gray areas you are referring to, that would then provide political fodder to them to then undermine their opponents and cash in on those particular clauses. But each time, a very practical example is what the Uhuru Kenyatta has done with the composition of the cabinet. He has created another newly position that is not known in law.
But he has the executive order that he can invoke.
Well, let me...
The same way he can create the position of secretary to the cabinet,
yes.
I mean, chief of staff.
Yes. Now, the question that comes is it a public service commission job? Because definitely, it is in the line with the secretaries, the deputy secretaries, the undersecretaries, the senior deputy secretaries. It is in that structure. And that structure falls under the purview of public commission. And a public service commission did not firstly recommend for creation, after carrying out an audit about the impotence of such officers. Then secondly, were these jobs advertised? And were they then competitively given out? All these are ways by which Jubilee is consistently fighting the Constitution. Because then, I've heard other people say that the creation of CAS is akin to having an assistant minister, which existed in the old order. But even if that is the case, we already have ballooning wage bill as a country. Now, those cabinet secretaries whom he gave jobs in the other regime did not complain about any,
maybe they didn't complain publicly, but they registered their feedback to the appointing authority. However, I would not wish that we discuss this issue any further for fear of being in contempt of the court. It's a case in court now, so that it doesn't appear like we are prosecuting it here. I will beg your indulgence that we leave it at that. But I want us to focus more on the events at Uhuru Park. I'm sure you will be leaving me in another probably 1 hour, 15 minutes. Yeah. Are you actually going, or am I?
Oh, definitely. I mean, without Nyande MP at Uhuru Park, there may be no event.
What is your take on the fact that it appears members of parliament from both divides are not very ready or keen enough to be able to convince their colleagues with alternative views, so that you have some of these things thrashed out from parliament?
Well, a very, very good question, Odhiambo. You know very well that we have always extended the period upon which today's event ought to have happened. Our Deputy President, Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, has time and again been out there agitating for dialogue amongst the warring factions. They have all fell on deaf ears. And we gave them time. I mean, we have met with the church, we have met with the diplomats, we have met with the European Union, we have met everybody worth talking about, in a bid that we can come together as a people and sort out issues around us. All these have not been given any credence, have not been given any attention. So what we are saying then, let us proceed with this event. The church has tried, even though a bit late, to bring us together so that we can reason out. But there are people around Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto who think that, by invitation of NASA into any dialogue portends danger for the positions they occupy. So now that they have refused to accept any sort of dialogue, let us proceed with our swearing in. And if there will be any dialogue, and let me be very clear on this, we are not closing our doors
on dialogue,
even after the swearing in.
I'm sure that is.
But if there will be need for any dialogue, then it has to be a structured dialogue, and it will only talk about electoral justice and the next elections within 90 days.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Jared Okello, Member of Parliament for Nyando. Will be continuing after this. We want to cross over now to the Central Business District, where Lulu Hassan and Bernard Ndong are pitching camp. We are now with Bernard Ndong, who is downtown. Bernard, if you can hear me, good morning. Tell us what's the latest in Nairobi's downtown.
Well, thank you very much, Charles, back there in the studio. I can tell you for a fact I'm here at the River Road bus station. You can see minimal activity. As we're heading into the CBD, we noticed that there was just a small contingent of police officers just outside, but within the Central Business District and other areas, there was not a lot of activity that was happening. But what we understand is that there are buses that had been hired to ferry some of the supporters, the NASA supporters, to Uhuru Park for the swearing-in ceremony. But what we understand is that some of the buses have been restricted from accessing the capital. We understand one of the companies had about 8 buses that are expected in the county, about 8 of them, but so far only 2 buses have arrived. It's still yet to ascertain exactly what happened to the other 6. You can see here just minimal activity. I understand that in normal circumstances it's normally a buzz of activity here because most people would have traveled out of the county, headed to Mombasa and other areas, and we can see very minimal activity for now. Nothing much to update on, but as we understand is that about several buses had been hired to ferry the supporters of NASA here into the capital, Nairobi, for the event that was expected to take place at NASA. Remember, according to the program, unofficial program, the supporters are supposed to be seated at the Uhuru Park by about 8 in the morning. Then the program starts at about 8:30, and from the earlier update from my colleague Stephen Leto, we understand that nothing much is happening there as well. But for now, limited activity, nothing much happening. But what we can update you is that some of the buses that were expected, specifically from Mombasa, have yet to arrive. 8 buses, that's what we've got an official confirmation from one of the bus companies here. 8 buses were expected here, but so far only 2. The fate of the 6 is yet to be known.
If I got you clearly, so 2 buses have arrived with NASA supporters destined for Uhuru Park. Are they still at the bus terminal, or have they made their way into Uhuru Park? If you can hear me, Bernard, if you can hear me, the 2 buses that have already arrived, have the passengers disembarked? Are they at the terminal, or are they at Uhuru Park?
I'm sorry, Charles, I didn't get that quite clearly.
The 2 buses that have arrived, Bernard, the passengers that were in them, have they gone to Uhuru Park, or are they still at the terminal? Could you be having an idea?
Okay, so far no bus has arrived. As we have seen, we've been here for about 15 minutes, and we are yet to know whether they will actually go there, if they are actually supporters who are supposed to be heading there, because you do understand that some of the buses that were hired, this bus is about 45 seater capacity, so once in terms of maybe there are also other passengers who are coming just to do their own normal business. But for the buses that were hired specifically for that event, we're yet to see any bus that has arrived that you can easily tell and be able to tell it has all the telltale signs that this particular bus was specifically hired for that particular function. But so far, no buses arrived that we can be able to see. Maybe some that arrived, but they were not maybe allowed to come to this particular place. As I mentioned earlier, they were expected about 8 buses to arrive today morning, but only so far 2 buses have arrived. The fate of the 6 is yet to be known. We do not know whether these 8 buses were in fact hired for this particular event. So perhaps they could be mixed mixed in terms of passengers who are coming for their normal business, and also some of the passengers who are coming for that specific event. So it's still unclear exactly whether those buses had been hired for that particular event, Charles.
Bernard Ndong from the downtown Nairobi, thank you very much. We'll be getting back to you later on as events unfold, so that you keep us posted. Crisp, clear. 8 buses had been destined for Nairobi from Mombasa, from the coastal region. About 6 are still detained in Voi, according to reports we got earlier on. A number of passengers in the 6 buses were found not to be in possession of their national identity cards, and the latest is that the station was still waiting for the OCPD, the Officer Commanding Police Division, to come and give a directive on what next. Apparently the passengers who had their IDs have been pleading to be allowed to proceed with their journey, but that has not been accepted or implemented. You're seeing shots of Uhuru Park, and of course on the left of your screen, the entrance to Raila Odinga's residence at Karen, Nairobi, where our very own Wilkista Nyabo is still camped. Earlier on we talked to her, and she told us they have not been allowed beyond the barrier. The only information they have, which they cannot certify or verify, that Raila Odinga is at his residence. They were not able to verify that information. She told us that there is not an unusual presence of police officers and that she would be posting us more. Remember, Francis Gashuri is along Gong Road. He'll be telling us more. Mercy Kandie is also at Karen, Kalonzo Musyoka's residence. Willis Raburu is in Kisumu, and Sam Kituku is at the High Court, ready to tell us what is the latest as far as the case that was filed by the Attorney General Githu Muigai challenging the legality of the People's Assemblies are concerned. Back here in the studio, I am with the Member of Parliament for Nyando constituency, Jared Okello. He was supposed to be with us, Honorable Speaker, Nairobi County Assembly, Beatrice Elachi, who is not here yet. I don't know if she'll still make it. It's quite some time gone. Mheshimiwa, how many people did you ferry from Nyando constituency?
Those who came from Nyando are to the tune of 6 buses, and they are here to witness the event.
Are they at Uhuru Park?
They made it. They made it to Nairobi. But again, it is quite unfortunate that at this time and age, the police would stop people traveling to Nairobi. And I want to believe not everybody in those buses were going to Uhuru Park. Some had very serious business. Some could have been coming to carry out interviews for job placements, and now they have been stopped and held incommunicado by police in Voi. That is quite unfortunate. I do not know any law that mandates every Kenyan to be armed by an identification card. I used to hear those during colonial periods. But you see how Jubilee is doing everything possible to bring back tyrannical and dictatorial tendencies. That in itself is dictatorship. You cannot hold a bus, a person who is out to carry out a business. And these are well-established bus companies in the names of going concerns. And you are interfering with their businesses at a time when the economy is really suffering. That is unacceptable. They ought to have allowed those people to proceed to their destinations. And in any event, if you are going to carry out a rally, for instance, at a particular place, the people who fill those stadia are not those who have been ferried. They are always the locals. So if Jubilee was out to, dispel this kind of event, then they ought to have targeted Nairobi region, not those who are traveling from various parts of the country. It is quite unfortunate. We never moved from police force to police service. It has remained a police force. But, NASA government will move in to, clear all these messes within the shortest possible space of time.
Mheshimiwa, assuming this event goes on at 12 o'clock, Raila to take oath of office as the people's president, then give his speech. Then what next?
A part of his speech will also... Sorry, no problem. Part of his speech will also include, naming the cabinet. We have seen the names that have been thrown by Jubilee, people who I know, if the tyranny of numbers were not going to inform the decision in Parliament, then half of Uhuru Kenyatta's cabinet will go home, because they do not have the integrity, they do not have the capacity and the professionalism to discharge their mandate. But when you are in Parliament, it is about voting, and they then tend to carry the day. So the kind of cabinet composition that Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka will parade to the world today, everybody will be in agreement.
I am told Mercy Kandie is ready to bring us up to speed on the events as they unfold at Kalonzo Musyoka's residence in Karen. Will be crossing over. But when we come back, I'm sure people want to know, after he names the cabinet, who will vet them? We cross over to Mercy Kandie in Karen. Mercy, if you can hear me, good morning.
Good morning, Charles.
On your face, eh? Sorry about that. Tell us what's happening.
Yes, Charles, we, as you mentioned, are currently at Karen at one of NASA principal's home, Kalonzo Musyoka. And what we can tell you so far, standing here, is that it's peaceful, it's calm, nothing happening so far. If my cameraman can just show you pictures of just outside his house, we're told he's still inside waiting to see if he'll get out to where the exact destination will be. That will be discovered a bit later on. But as you can see, members of the press just waiting to see if Kalonzo Musyoka and other NASA principals will step out for that particular event. But so far, Charles, no security on site. Calm. We've just seen even some of the residents going about their normal business. Charles?
How far are you from Kalonzo Musyoka's residence? I'm asking that because earlier on, Wilkista Nyabwa told us they had been stopped at the outside barrier.
We are actually just outside the gate. We've just moved slightly away from the gate because we've not been allowed to stand just outside the gate. But Charles, if probably my cameraman can just do a small pan and just zoom to. This is literally just outside his gate. No confrontation, no. We've not been told not to, just what we've not been allowed to do is get inside the house. But we have been told that Kalonzo Musyoka is inside his house. We will be keeping you updated in terms of if he comes out for that particular event. But Charles, and like what Wilkista had told you, that we and just other members of the press are outside the home of Kalonzo Musyoka. Charles.
Mercy Kandia will be coming back to you and when there is any new development. Please keep us posted, and all the best. Take good care of yourself. We are also having shots on your screen, the left side of your screen, Kisumu's Odinga Street, where Willis Raburu is camped, and we'll be joining him shortly so that he brings us up to speed on what is really happening in Kisumu. Thank you very much, Mercy. Before we cross over to Kisumu, Mheshimiwa, after Raila Odinga names his cabinet, as you said he will do, the law says they have to be vetted. So who will vet them, and where will they be vetted? Bearing in mind that you have said it time and again that you don't have the numbers in Parliament.
What, and I will mention this enough times, we are taking back the sovereignty to the people of the great Republic of Kenya. That sovereignty therefore means that even the vetting process, by the dint of the Constitution on public participation, shall be done by the Kenyan people. NASA will convene various sessions in various parts of the country, and people will present their petitions to those particular conventions. And if somebody has an issue with a particular cabinet or a candidate for cabinet position, then that will be the best aura for those concerns to be addressed. So the people of Kenya will vet our cabinet on behalf of the elected leaders.
So the people of Kenya will give NASA the mandate to convene this vetting panel.
As they have given us the mandate to convene People's Assembly.
Given you as who?
As NASA coalition.
Okay, so I'm a bit confused here, Mheshimiwa. Sovereignty lies with the people. The people shall exercise the powers directly.
Yes.
So at what point is NASA the people?
NASA is a coalition of political parties deriving its powers and strength directly from the people. And if they will then name their cabinet, it is incumbent upon, again, the Kenyan people, not the duly elected leaders, as is exercised in Article 1, Sabbatical 2. But this is giving people directly the mandate to do so. You're aware that we have conducted various conventions in various counties since we began this process. We just came out of Homa Bay the other week, last weekend. So in such a forum, people will then get to know the names of nominees for various positions. And at that particular time, if somebody has an issue or a petition to raise against any individual, then that is the best platform to do so.
So the situation is that the people will be vetting those who are appointed to various cabinet positions by Raila Odinga after being sworn in today. Then what next?
Well, then what will happen next is for every Kenyan to wait and see, some of which we cannot say here in public, because we still have to, wrap a lot of issues, because you know we are dealing with a very tyrannical and dictatorial Jubilee.
So, Mheshimiwa, now you are telling me it is not about the people, it is about you. That's why you are keeping some information. So this information is not coming from the people themselves.
Well, what I'm simply saying is that we are not going to jump the gun. We are waiting at an opportune time and release relevant information at the right time. We are not going to just, you know, verbose, just like it happens in Jubilee. We have to create a...
Who is we?
We means NASA as a coalition.
All right.
Republic of Kenya.
Remember, our reporters are spread across the country. We have on your screens now, on the left, the right side actually, shots coming to you live from Uhuru Park, where Stephen Leto is. Earlier on, Stephen Leto told us there was no police presence, but now you can see police officers in horsebacks trotting through the ground. A number of vehicles also there now, and a fairly small crowd. Similar to what we had earlier on. We will be getting back to Stephen Leto to get to know what exactly is happening there. But now we want to cross over to Kisumu. I don't know if Willis Raburu is ready now. Willis, if you can hear me, how is Kisumu City this morning?
Well, thank you very much, Charles. Odinga, back at the communication center. We are in Kisumu, like you rightly put it. I'm actually on the road here, so I'll just allow this good gentleman to pass as well. But Kisumu is doing actually very well. Nothing has been reported so far. It is actually one of the 16 counties that already passed the People's Assembly motion. Of course, we are in this place is Kondele, which can be described as sort of the epicenter of the politics in this particular region. So far, nothing to report. All is peaceful, all is calm. Right behind me, I see free flow of traffic. What we do know is that about last night, there were some 5 buses. People are organizing themselves in groups, and 5 buses were able to leave here and, on their way to Nairobi for the swearing-in ceremony that has been planned by NASA. We also informed that other people just went with normal the public means, but the people who organized themselves in groups were able to fill up about 5 buses and go all the way to Nairobi. So far everything is cool. I've been able to speak to a few people just to get sort of like what their feelings are of to what they expect today. Basically what they are telling me is that it is all sort of a wait and see. They're waiting to hear what is going to happen right there in Nairobi. They are hoping for the best. Some of them even speaking in the native language here, saying all we want is peace. And then that is, at least I've been able to speak to them, and that's what they're able to say. So we are out here in Kondele. We are different teams right here. We also have Stephen Shitara is our camera person over in town as well. Everything is peaceful on our way there. Dismas Nabiswa is also keeping an eye on things there, and everything seems to be going on well. He tells me that everything, the flow of traffic, as you will be seeing in some of the pictures, everything is normal. People are going about their business as usual. And also, we're also working in tandem with one of our colleagues from our Ramogi station, Alan Obiero. So we're going to be bringing you up to the minute, up to date, comprehensive coverage of this region. And for now, though, I will toss it back over to you, and we'll link up with you as and when we have updates. Of course, we're going to continue doing our laps. We've just been to town and to Kondele. We're going to continue moving around Kisumu, and when we then gather information and then relate over to you and to the general public as well. Remember, you can keep tabs with all the conversation at Citizen TV Kenya for all pictures and coverage, as well as our personal handles at Willis Raburu and at S. Shitera.
Willis, we are looking forward for more updates from you. But before you leave us, have you been able to talk to some of the Wananchi in Kisumu? Do they know what's next? Because I have in the studio here Jared Okello, Member of Parliament for Nyando, and he tells me this is a people-driven exercise. How much aware or informed are the people about the event?
Right, yes, actually, that's correct. Immediately when we touched down here in Kisumu, I was able to just talk to a few people to try to get at the pulse of what it is they feel. And there are two things. One, Charles, is that they are waiting, of course, to hear from the principals. They're also waiting. That is actually the big question, Charles. What next in terms of the swearing in? What they do not know is, some of the technicalities of the swearing in. Somebody even asked me about what are the wordings going to be. Are there going to be the instruments of power and such like things? That was some of the questions that they were asking when I was talking to them. But what they do know, Charles, for certain, is that they're waiting for that ceremony to take place. They're also waiting, Charles, to hear from the principals directly to give them guidance as to what to do next. I remember this has been challenged a lot. They are also aware of the case that's going to be going on today, the hearing that, they were asking about the hearing and what it means, what it portends, what can happen, in terms of the hearing. Is it a hearing? Is it a ruling? So they are still waiting, basically, and looking up to us, in the media to give them information as well, especially those who are not in Nairobi. So, Charles, they are waiting for the swearing in to take place. What I did get a sense and a feeling of, Charles, is that what they don't have quite a clear understanding of is exactly, like you said, what happens after the swearing in. Should it happen? What is the way going forward? And I think the steering committee led by David Dia said that they're going to be talking about that later on, and hopefully if it does take place, if it doesn't, if it does, we'll get to know, they'll get to know rather what they can expect after that. But so far, all they do know is that the ceremony is there. They are, however, Charles, also just before I toss it back over to you, they're also asking about security and what measures have been read. I'm sure you had a look at some of the dailies and the discussions about security, and that is their only fear, in what's going to happen in terms of security-wise. But all in all, they're optimistic. They say that they're ready for peaceful demonstrations, and if they're called upon, that is, and they're waiting. They're going to just be behind watching the TVs and of course also looking into social media and waiting to hear from the principals.
Willis Raburu coming to you live from Kondele in Kisumu. Remember, we are giving you a comprehensive coverage of the events of the day as they unfold from across the country. We'll later on be joining Dennis Otieno and Francis Gashuri, who are pitching cup in Kibera and Gong Road respectively. Remember, we'll also be looking for Sam Kituku, who is at the court, to tell us what's happening as far as the case challenging the legality of the People's Assembly's concern, a case that was filed in court by the Attorney General, Githu Muigai. This is the Power Breakfast Show, a comprehensive coverage, as I said, of the day's events. My name is Charles Odinga. We are taking a short break. When we come back, we continue looking at the events as they unfold, as well as what's making headlines in the papers this morning.
That you're using the loo as a passport, because it's not just ridiculous but also really degrading.